Okay, why don't we just get started, and I'm sure people will roll in the next 5 minutes or so. So let's just take a deep breath. Just take in the entire surroundings with your eyes, with your ears. Stretch yourself into the environment. And just be where you are. For anyone just getting in, we're just showing up in this moment, letting our attention take in the room around us. Hey, Lynn. And just let your eyes soften so that they can take in the whole scene at once. No one thing to focus on. It takes a softness, a gentleness to show up for this moment. Gently arrive. So my surroundings are going to look a little different. I'm on vacation. I'm in beautiful Kauai, and this will probably be a bit of a shorter session. I don't have any of my tech with me, so I'm using my least flattering camera, and uh, I don't even have my normal microphone. So if you can't hear me, put something in the text. But let's just take some time today to just let everything come to a stop. All your spinnings, all your stories, everything you've been up to, let it just gently rest. And if you can do that little by little, your awareness will unfold into this moment. This moment as it actually is. Cleansed of your drama, cleansed of your stories. A charged respite. Now, while you're doing that, it's helpful to center your attention on the breath while you maintain an awareness of the center of your forehead and your crown. The breath gives you a landing spot, and the forehead and the crown slowly become activated. And when they do, it releases hormones through your body that actually help you relax a little bit. It also elevates your vibrations so the lower things can't cling to you as easily. So let's do that now. I'm going to stop talking. You're going to center yourself on your breath, forehead and crown. And from there, you're just going to be where you are. Not asking it to be anything different than it is. And if I can do that in Kauai, and you can do that in your room, believe it or not, we'll be in the same place. The essence that lives at the heart of the most beautiful place is the same essence that lives in the depth of a dumpster. What makes it different is the stories you tell about it, the comparisons you draw. So be in this moment. Don't compare it to anything. Let it be exactly what it is. See if you can hear the ringing of the silence. Let it deepen. I want to talk to you tonight about really a toss-off statement that one of my spiritual teachers made a long time ago. You know, at the time, she was saying something about the protections put in place for the mind by the sensory gateways, the gateways of the senses, or the gateways of the sensory body, something like that. I remember at the time, I didn't really understand it, but I thought it sounded so cool, and I wanted to understand it. There were lots of teachings floating around, teachings about see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, as being the key to awakening, which I always thought sounded lacking in nuance. You know, does that really help a person who has to move through this world? I mean, maybe if you had nothing else to do but sit on top of a mountain, but even your average monastery, good luck seeing, hearing, and speaking no evil. And the word itself is something I don't really subscribe to. But what is actually meant by the gateways of the sensory body is something quite simple, but we don't actually know it usually because all our gateways are open. You know, nothing's being protected. This life is a sensory experience. What you experience has major credence over every experience that comes next. Let me find a better doorway into this. Let's work from where I am. So I'm in Kauai, and right now I look out my window and I see beautiful, lush, balanced greenery. I see an ocean. I see an endless sky filled with the most beautiful clouds in the world. There's wildlife everywhere. And all of that carries a feeling. That imagery carries feeling. It's a container, really, for feeling. If you choose to look and focus on the sky, it's a different feeling than if you choose to focus on the water. It's a different feeling than if you choose to focus on the ducks that are knocking on our door with their beaks because we made the mistake of feeding them. But there's a literal feeling that comes out of all those experiences. With the ducks, it's a lively, kind of punchy, buoyant feeling. With the sea, it's a feeling of depth. With the clouds, it's a feeling of lightness and elevation. But anyone who's ever seen a cloud knows that that explanation doesn't really cover it. It's like trying to describe the difference between a pear and an apple in flavor. You know, there's really no way to describe the difference between those two flavors. And feeling is the same way. It just so happens that most of the feeling contained imagery around me is very healing. It's imagery that is balancing to the body and the mind. When I go home, I'm living in a place where it can also be balancing. But there's a lot larger of a buffet of unbalancing imagery to look at. You know, even if you just look at the faces of the people walking around, there's a feeling that comes out of that. You know, the fluorescent lights at your work, the crampedness of things, there's a feeling that comes out of that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But all that imagery is container for feeling. The experiences that we have with people, the tone in their voice, there's a feeling that that tone contains and conveys. The odors of our environment as we walk around contain a feeling. You know, all of aromatherapy is built around that, and they take it to some crazy places, but at the end of the day, the legit part of it is that there are certain scents that if you sit there and really take them in and give them your attention, provide you with an experience of balanced beauty. The smell of an orange peel is a feeling of wakefulness and brightness, even if your eyes are closed. Isn't it? It's why people drink orange juice in the morning instead of at night. You know, the world of gemology and crystals, which also goes to some crazy places. But these beautiful objects evoke a feeling, don't they? Even if you don't believe in that stuff, you still end up walking into those shops because you want to take that feeling in. You know, I can be in an environment like this, but I also have so many recorded feelings from my old life. And they can easily take this over. So it doesn't really matter where you are. You can be miserable anywhere. You can feel anything anywhere. Your mind is a feeling factory. It does it through images, it does it through scents, it does it through sounds. even remembered. And when I say feeling, it sounds like we're talking about something kind of, like a phantom, right? Like something that isn't really fully there and yet we know we're experiencing it. But it's actually not like that at all. Those feelings are chemicals moving through your body. Those feelings are chemicals produced by your body, received by receptors on your cells, telling them to be a certain way. We know that feelings of stress and the chemicals that produces, are one of the biggest risk factors for disease in our society. So just kind of walking around not understanding how all of this works isn't really a good option. One thing we talk about a lot in these classes is personal responsibility. And you can take that far down the mystical road. But you don't need to go there before you've first mastered the basics, which is to take responsibility for your feelings. If you're feeling a certain way, it's because you are looking at something specific in your environment or replaying something very specific in your head. We all have to work, we all have to participate in things that sometimes we don't feel like. I don't mean that as a should. We don't have the right to tell people what they will and won't participate in. But most people's lives, in order to get the things that they need, require some interaction with containers of feeling that are unpleasant. But the story we tell around it can really stick it to us. It's one thing to feel bad, and 9 times out of 10, the reason that you're feeling bad about something you have to go do is not necessarily because the imagery or feeling being presented in the moment is bad. It's because you're remembering a time when it was, and you haven't actually let go of that. Other times you're showing up and maybe the feeling is actually bad. But what story do you tell about that? Is it, oh, I'm in a place where the feeling is bad? The things that are happening here are not in alignment with who I want to be and what I want to do. And so I'm going to be very controlling of my attention in this moment and just be very purposeful in my actions in this environment, and then I'm going to get out. And I'm going to let it go. That's very different than what most people do, which is they go in, they feel bad, and they find someone to resent for making them feel bad. And then there's a story in their head about that person. We all do this, do we not? I do it too. It's human nature. But if you're aware of it, you can catch it. And you catch it not because that person is really doing good in some way. You're catching it because it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve you to carry it in that way. But you can kind of see how your sensory body has gateways that need to be protected. All your stories enter. All the material for your stories enter through those senses. And from them, you create this pharmacy of feeling. Little combinations of chemicals to move through your body. And then most people move them through on automatic pilot. It's about becoming aware. Some things, once they're in, they're very hard to get out. You know, we can tell ourselves a bunch of frilly stories about how if you just loved more, or if you just, let it go, it would somehow be gone. But the fact is, the things that happen to us, they happen to us. And sometimes they do happen because we interacted in a way where we were vulnerable. I have people who have taken advantage of me in ways that have had major consequences on my life. And those things live inside of us. If you're going to walk around in this world, that's going to happen. It's how do we carry it? How do we pull it out? How often do we allow that feeling set to run through us? Do we let that keep us from other things that we need to do in this world? A lot of people, when they have something like that happen, they will just try and bypass it. They'll push it to the side because those feelings aren't spiritual. And they'll just try and happy their way through. And when you do that, all that happens is it gets pushed into your subconscious, where it continues manifesting feeling, only now you have less control over it.
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
I'm not sure if I heard you exactly. It seemed like you said that sometimes these things happen because we are vulnerable.
Sometimes we, just through our normal participations in life, find ourselves in situations where within that broader story that we're entering, we are vulnerable. Yes. There are power dynamics. There are, life is cyclical. So a lot of the things you want to do in life require you stepping into something and spending a period of time there with the expectation that that's going to lead to a specific place. And if someone is just kind of taking advantage of you and using you in a certain way, then, you being in a position where you needed that cycle to get you somewhere left you vulnerable. My point in saying that is not that we should go to some place where we're never vulnerable to, bad things happening. That we are going to have those things happen to us. And I want you to understand the mechanism of that feeling. That whole experience, that storyline, the imagery surrounding it, the sounds that you heard, the tones that you heard, is this rich tapestry that is a container for a set of feelings. And once you've lived it, those feelings are a part of you. They're up there on the wall of your feeling pharmacy of things that can get sent through your body. You don't have to stay. You can get up and move away from it. You don't have to keep people in your life just because, if they are people that bring a bunch of negativity. But the things that happen to us, I mean, don't you have things that you've legit tried to just let go of, but still, once every couple of weeks, they come up and you get upset about them?
Of course.
Of course, right? And you are someone who has been practicing spiritually for decades. If it were as simple as we like to write in our little books, it wouldn't be like that. I have them too. The difference between someone who is practicing spiritually and someone who isn't is, what do you do when you realize, oh, I just took a pill off that bottle of crap? You know, I've got these chemicals moving through me. If you just
I see.
if you can just take that step back and understand how that all came about, it is easier to shut it down.
But will it always be there that you just don't access it?
For this lifetime, it will. Yeah, it'll always be there, and it'll be a button that gets pushed sometimes. You know, you can work really hard, I guess, to deactivate the button, but we've got a lot of buttons. You know, the hardest thing and the most important is just understanding that a button got pushed, and understanding that it's not really anything more than, okay, so back in like the 90s, when viruses, computer viruses, were like a new thing, right? I remember I had gotten a virus on my computer, and I was, living monastically. I might have my dates wrong, but and so my computer sent viruses to like just all kinds of people that are connected to me spiritually, when I was still a student. And people's responses were so funny. They were all just like, thanks for the virus, enjoy your karma. Not realizing, well, wait a minute, you got that virus the same way I did. You got that container of feeling the same way I did. I didn't give it to you because I wanted to give it to you. It's something I had. People get, you can't help but be Chelsea, right? So Chelsea's got a whole set of feelings that makes up the person everybody knows by that name. And you are going to be you. And you'll have the good and you'll have the bad. You'll have the weak spots and you'll have the strengths, the things where you kick ass at, and the things that you hope no one sees, right? I have those too. If somebody runs into Chelsea, they can't be mad at having an experience of Chelsea. They can choose to not have an experience of Chelsea. They can choose to, not do that again. But at the end of the day, whatever it is they pick up from you, you picked it up the same way. You picked it up from your family and your exposures as a child. And whatever else you were exposed to, right? We all just catch these lineages of good things and bad things, if such a distinction really exists. You pick it up through those 5 senses. And knowing how easy it is for you to pick it up, someone who's spiritually awake recognizes that that person they just picked it up from picked it up the same way. It's just something that is in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah. But so understanding that that came in that way sets you free from a lot of the blaming. It still might mean I'm not going anywhere near that person again, or you might have to, in the next couple of days I have to. But it just means you protect those senses. You get in, you do what you have to do, you work purposefully, and you get out. You get out knowing that probably a bunch of buttons are going to be triggered from all the bad things that came out of experiencing that person. And you're prepared for it. And you just know that those are buttons and they're going to get pushed and you're going to have those feelings move through you and you're going to let them go. As opposed to what everyone else will do, which is take that and turn it into yet another cycle of bad feeling. Spin on it, spin on it, spin on it. Make decisions about your life based on it. Do you see? So understanding that we experience everything through those senses, and so does everyone else. It sets up a storyline that makes it easier to manage your system of buttons. Does that make sense to everybody? If there's every therapy on the planet is based on this. It just doesn't know it is. Except Ayurveda. Ayurveda knows. Ayurveda is categorizes every experience you could ever have, every sensation experience a person could have, and link it up to how it interacts with the different ways that a person's body and mind can go out of order. And so they will produce experiences for you, that are equal and opposite to the disorder that you have going on. It might be, you're curing a stomach problem by going into a room that's all one specific color and spending 4 days there just in exposure to that experience. And the funny thing is the stomach problem goes away. It's they went deep with it. But you don't need to go down some rabbit hole to interact with it. You're interacting with it right now. You come to this class because I go into the silence, and from that space, I speak to you. And so my face and my voice give off a specific sensory impression that creates a feeling in your body. And it makes it easier for you to meditate. It makes you want to meditate. And then other people, when they meet you, they have that experience too, so it spreads. And it's nothing special about me, except just that I know it's one of our options today. And you'll be doing some version of that give and take all night. And you've been doing it all day. All the tools to understand it are right in front of you 24 hours a day. You just have to wake up to them. Check in. How am I feeling? What imagery do I have going on that's making me feel that way? and you learn about your system of triggers. You know, one of the most effective things an alcoholic can do to not drink is they can avoid all the different places that are triggers for them. I mean, would it be better if they could go in there and not be triggered? Of course. But it's not about that, it's about not drinking. My point in saying that is that trigger management is the answer. But first, you have to know yourself. And that comes through awareness and meditation. Meditation's so great because that transition from the clear mind into one of your triggers is so informative. Like, what is that first thing after a long meditation that pulls you back into the world of paranoia, stress, and feeling? You know, there's just so much to learn from that transition back and forth. But so this week, I'd like you to actually know how you're feeling. Check in every 5 minutes. And just be aware of how you're feeling. And if what you're feeling is imbalanced, what gateway picked that up? How did your senses take that in? Was it from something external? Or was it from something internal? A memory? But then what externally triggered that memory? And just see what you can learn about yourself and write it down. The most useful things you learn spiritually don't stick around. You gotta write them down. Any questions about any of that? Okay, everybody. I'm going to let you go. I will see you next week, and I'm going to get back to my vacation. Have a good week. I'll see you Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks.